A very warm welcome to today's session on curating the right mix of employee wellness benefits, a guide for HR professionals in partnership with MediBuddy. I'm Swani Kumar from the People Matters team. This is an exclusive discussion brought to you as part of the annual initiative #Wellness First with MediBuddy. Through our partnership with MediBuddy, we will curate the best resources on holistic healthcare and Wellness 360. With leading expert voices from the industry and the medical community, we will publish research, health tips, articles, blogs, virtual roundtables, and expert panels aimed at simplifying your wellness journey to help drive impact and care to your employees. In the recently released People Matters and MediBuddy Wellness 360 study, over 78% of companies reported that increasing employee engagement was the primary goal of their wellness program. Yet it remained a significant challenge for 52% of the companies surveyed. As a result, companies need to curate the right mix of benefits to ensure wellness programs are impactful in driving engagement and addressing well-being issues holistically. These include exploring the right outpatient benefits, providing employees with holistic care options that address physical, mental, social, and financial well-being, and ensuring personalization all the way. The right mix of such benefits becomes critical if companies want to formulate impactful wellness programs. To explore how companies can achieve this, People Matters and MediBuddy brings to you this exclusive webinar. Before I invite our panelists, I want to take the opportunity to thank the MediBuddy team for always being in the forefront of the conversation, for supporting us to put today's agenda together to advance forward as we talk about holistic wellness. We have today with us Lavanya Srinagesh, Vice President, Global CSR and Diversity and Inclusion Leader, Genpact India. Lavanya is leading programs that harness the energy and talent of the employees for the economic, social, and environmental betterment of the communities we live and work in. She is involved in steering initiatives to create a gender-balanced organization with 50% of representation of women across all levels. Thank you, Lavanya, for joining us today.
Thanks, Asmani, for having me.
And then we have with us Ajay Chaudhary, President and CHRO SRF Limited, an alumnus of Hindu College Delhi University and Jawaharlal Nehru University. Ajay Chaudhary is a people person who has a way of reaching out to the hearts and minds of his colleagues. With an MBA degree in HR from the Faculty of Management Studies, Ajay sincerely believes in the triad of capability development, ethics, and joy at the workplace. At SRF, where his career started in 2010, his priority is to build and strengthen a business-aligned, value-driven, issue-based, employee care-centered HR function that other organizations would like to emulate. Welcome, Ajay. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks so much. Thank you.
And then we have with us Rohit Chauhan, Head of Business, Corporate Labs and Consultations, MediBuddy. Rohit Chauhan is a seasoned health and wellness business leader with a demonstrated history of working in the enterprise health and wellness sector in India, Middle East, and Southeast Asia. He has an extensive experience of over 15 years working with top corporates in the region, designing and executing successful award-winning wellness programs. Thank you so much for joining us, Rohit.
Thank you, Smani. Thank you, team.
So without further ado, I would like to start the discussion with our panelists. A quick housekeeping. If the audience has any questions, feel free to put it in the chat and we will take it up towards the end of the session. So my first question is actually open to all of the panelists. And as we discuss about holistic well-being and the benefits involved, what I wish to understand is that what is that one area of a holistic well-being program that companies are yet to explore and that you as an HR leader wish to explore in the coming months? Lavanya, can we start with you?
Absolutely. So I think the pandemic didn't give us a choice to not explore holistic well-being and all attributes of it. So I think most organizations have had to think about physical as well as mental and emotional well-being. I think the thing that's continuing into the future now continues to be mental well-being as part of the ecosystem or the services of support that you provide your employees today. I can tell you that in the last year itself, we've made several strides focusing on mental well-being, because it's with the pandemic, it brought with it challenges of moving from the work environment into the home environment, and then balancing and negotiating that environment. As we're all thinking about going back to work, that again, that change brings a whole set of anxieties associated with it about going back into the office, and that tantamounts to a certain degree of stress and pressure and anxiety, both from a work standpoint as well as the worry for your physical well-being and of those around you. So therefore, I think knowledge resources in terms of what is available, what are the things that you can have research on. I think being able to have open and transparent conversations that are focused on it's okay to be not okay. All of us are not happy and smiling all the time, and it's okay to acknowledge that. And then development of your leadership team and managerial resources, to really focus on recognizing the signs, especially in the work in the hybrid environment, right? I mean, earlier you'd meet someone, you recognize there was something off about them, but suddenly today you're in an environment where it's become very tactical. You get onto Zoom or sessions such as these, and you really just talk about what you need to talk about, or your emails are very focused and targeted towards tasks and results. So what are the things that you can train managers to say that, notice if someone is being a bit more quiet, notice if there's a curter tone in someone's emails, notice if someone is not being responsive, so that you can, proactively have the conversation. I think it's important also to sort of recognize that it's a employee's personal choice to talk about something versus not talk about something. But the fact that you brought the subject and that you recognized that there was something that was not okay tells the employee that you actually care. And I think that's a very important trait that all organizational cultures are going to have moving forward.
Thank you for sharing that, Lavanya. I think that's a very important point you spoke about, like noticing, the small misses that, if while we interact in a virtual workplace. So, Ajay, what is your take on something more that we need to explore in holistic well-being?
See, I think as Lavanya mentioned that even if we didn't want to, we were forced to look at all aspects of wellness and health included and so on and so forth during the pandemic and facing the aftermath or whatever. So one qualifier that I have, we don't have this coming back to office problem because we're a manufacturing organization and 90% of our people were out there braving the odds, so to say, during the pandemic. And in fact, the people in the cities, in the corporate office and headquarters and this and that, they were actually guilty that they were forced to stay at home by the government when the lockdown was sort of announced. And I'm talking of a vast majority. I know there are many people who would be happy to work from home forever, but it just somehow doesn't fit with our culture. So just that qualifier. And I think because of that, we had explored what we think to be all aspects of wellness about 3 4 years back when we came out with the wellness model that we have now, which I'll talk about more later in the session. But I think going back a step, the way that I look at it, the way that I look at it personally, is the aspect that we've missed out on at a conscious level. Some organizations might do it unconsciously, is ease of existence, by which I mean that there are, now we very well know there are different strokes for different folks. And as Lavanya mentioned, that noticing maybe is the first this thing. So if I know that there is a problem with someone at home who needs to be home, let's say at 4 o'clock every day because of a medical whatever necessity and so on, then I know that I don't want to keep a meeting in which he or she is needed at 4 o'clock ever. So just very small example, but it's about letting people be themselves. Wellness, end of the day, provides, make conscious efforts to understand what leads to ease of existence for people and make conscious efforts within obviously a broad framework, which is, the office, the discipline and the commitments and the deliverables and this and that, but let people be. So this labor code that's coming up, which the jury is still out on that, but this 12-hour week, 4 days a week, it's like if people opt for it, then so be it, and we shouldn't come in the way and so on. if people want to do things in a particular manner, dress in a particular manner, as long as work is not getting affected, I think we should be a little more tolerant, a little more flexible, and maybe look at the gig workforce in a more whatever more obvious manner as a choice rather than just stick to rules and regulations which the generation that's coming into the workforce is just not going to tolerate. So that's my 2 cents on this.
Now, I think like ease of existence is a very important phrase that companies should adopt when they're implementing wellness programs. So thank you so much for bringing that up, Ajay. Rohit, I would now like to come to you. Could you share your take on something that we're missing in holistic well-being?
Yeah, hi. So, after listening to Lavanya and Ajay, I have a little bit more to the wellness programs we have, right? So, when you look at any corporate, most of the large corporates or medium-sized corporates, they have pretty decent wellness programs. When you look at very tangible health benefits, they are very strong. Like most of them have a annual health check program. A lot of them have various OPD benefits, like be it doctor consultations or pharmacy benefits, employee assistance programs, and dental, vision. So most of the benefits are right there, and all the corporates, they want to focus on preventive care benefits. But what I feel is the biggest challenge most of the corporates are facing, and I feel we don't have enough initiatives to drive adoption. Most of the corporates, when I talk about the utilization, what is a success metric which they look at in terms of utilization or adoption of the wellness program? Most of the corporates say, okay, we were at some 30%, today we are at 50%, so we are very happy. And this is vast majority of the corporates we interact with. Of course, there are a lot of corporates wherein they have achieved 70-80% of adoption, because I think they were very clear from the beginning of having wellness initiatives that adoption is the first thing they were tracking. And there are few corporates who have already achieved it, but vast majority of corporates, the biggest challenge what I feel is uh, driving adoption. And I think we don't have enough adoption initiatives. And I think this is the time we should actually start looking at getting more and more people as part of the wellness initiatives, because as I mentioned at the beginning, there are a lot of programs and initiatives that are there for the employees, and it could be covering most of the employees health and wellness requirements as an individual. So how do we bring all these people onto the wellness program? I think once you start doing it, there is a lot of awareness created. Our employees would know that, okay, what are the issues they are facing, and they can actually start driving further initiatives to improve the health and wellness. So for me, I think driving adoption is the biggest missing link at the moment, though we are actually touching upon various tangible health benefits.
So Rohit,
Thank you for.
I'll just take on from there as a very small example when you talk of adoption. So we
Yeah.
had this obviously, I mean, we've had it for long, the yearly health checkup facility that we provide to all our employees. And some years back, the adoption, as you're saying, was like 30%, 20%, 25, whatever in that range. And we did just two simple things to drive that adoption. We tried herding people into hospitals saying that it's good for you, it's good for you, but no takers, or the same number of takers. So we did two simple things. We said that, okay, we'll give you a leave on that day. So you go there at your own time, relax, get it done, go back home and relax. No need to come to office, nothing. I mean, and obviously it's a leave on top of all other leaves that you have. The second more important thing that we did was we said that the report that is generated is for your good. It's between you and the hospital. We don't want to have access to it unless there is something serious that we should know, that we can help you out with. But if it's a simple whatever, an annual regular whatever. And the reason why we did that was that there was a large number of people who felt that if the report was not okay, then it'll create an adverse situation for them as far as their career is concerned, or their transferability is concerned, or their higher responsibilities or whatever. And that made the, what was the term that you used, adoption rate shoot up to above 80%. Now people ask us for
Great.
setting up the appointments and so on and so forth. So just a small example, one small part, but I just thought, it's worth
I think
mentioning
that's
because
a
of.
Great
really,
initiative.
really valid point, Ajay, and primarily because I think one of the things we don't recognize and we should is from a human perspective, most people don't like to talk about their health or emotional mental wellness. It is something that's considered to be very personal in nature. And when you have organization driven programs, you assume that that confidentiality may becomes more open. So one is of course that you don't want the organization to know if there's anything untoward unless you are ready to tell them, but I think it's also to recognize human behavior, which is generally likes to keep some things personal and private and away from the workplace.
Absolutely.
Thank
And
you.
again, talking of human behavior, it's also that people who are in the know, they take advantage of that knowledge. So a
That's
person
right.
comes back and next day they'll say, "Good morning. Oh, diabetes ho gaya tujhe." Yeah, so it's like that guy is
Yeah.
saying like, let me be. I mean, it's not the end of the world. There are hundreds of people who go
Yeah.
around with diabetes. Let me handle it. Who are you to sort of, get into my
Yeah.
personal space and so on.
It's
So
as
yeah,
equal
I
as
mean
a body
that's
shaming kind of a thing. Like people just pull out
unfortunately.
that if you have.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Totally unwarranted, but happens.
Okay. Thank you so much for talking about digital adoption, because I think that is critical to the impact that wellness programs will have on the workforce. So now I would like to come to you, Lavanya, and since we're talking about digital adoption, I would like to understand the role that this digital adoption and especially wellness leaders can play in expanding the accessibility to this variety of wellness solutions that are being implemented at the workplace.
So I think again, the pandemic created a certain kind of openness to digital healthcare, which earlier on it didn't. People had that. It's like when you move from going to a bookstore to a Kindle, right? There is that transition period, and then you realize, wow, this is so much easier. I should have done this in the beginning itself. So I think that shift has definitely happened in people's minds. But as you think about digital adoption, I think awareness is one of the most critical elements to cover, right? So, what does digital healthcare really mean? Is it as effective as in person healthcare? If I have an issue, how does it actually work? How easily are the doctors contactable? What is the qualification of the doctor that I'm being, connected with, or the labs that I'm being connected with, and so on and so forth, right? So, I think there are, when it comes to health, because again it's such a personal important part of a person's life, you want to have make sure that all those boxes are ticked. And I'll give you an example. We partnered with an organization called Fertility IQ, which is based out of the US. It's a family planning resource center. It actually gives you a whole, I mean, other than of course the research that it provides, it also gives you comparisons, people's experiences with certain doctors and so on. So you actually go into a meeting with a doctor with well armed with a whole amount of information, as well as having the opportunity to choose the right one based on someone else's and a whole host of people's various experiences. So I think that's been one of the shifts that we've had to make. That initial shift of shall I, shan't I think we've sort of as a community altogether moved past that point now. Now it's really about, are the resources the right resources for me? Are they trustworthy resources? Again, when you come to healthcare, trust is the biggest thing. So to be able to develop that trust with the employee workforce, so that they feel that comfort and that ability to engage. I see Rohit has something to say.
Rohit, would you like to go?
No, I think digital wellness solutions is. I mean, I think we are all convinced about that. But like, if you want to drive wellness initiatives at scale, digital is the only way forward. So I've seen. I've been trying to sell digital health from 2007 onwards. So it's been very difficult for us to go and convince people the the power of digital health. And currently everyone is talking about digital health, and we get a lot of inquiries on a daily basis, like how we can digitize the whole health and wellness journey for corporate. So that's a way forward.
Uh, Speaking of like digital healthcare, Rohit, would you like to share with us more about how digital wellness solutions can contribute to creating a holistic well-being program?
Yeah. So, what digital can solve for the corporates is, like, one is, you can actually get a fully integrated system, right? We've been discussing about various health benefits, right? You have consultations, you have lab tests, you have medicines, dental, vision, fitness, diet, EAP, emotional health and wellness programs. Now, maybe around 10 years back, like, if you have to do if you want to have a wellness program, like, maybe let's say you want to give health checks, you want to have to go and talk to one vendor who's specialized in health checks. If you want to give a doctor consultation, then you have somebody else who will actually do doctor consultation. Now, it has been very difficult for an HR the medical team to actually drive the wellness programs with the employees. Now, just imagine the data flow also. Like, you have to, first of all, you have to share data with multiple companies. Then you also don't get data in a integrated format. So what is exactly happening with the employees? So each company will give data in different formats and uh, different way of predicting it, and nobody was actually integrating the whole system. Now, that has been replaced by digital ecosystems like MediBuddy, wherein we have all of these items, all of these health benefits at one place, and it's easy for an HR to actually launch a wellness program. Let's say if it is 100,000 employees or 10,000 employees, they can just configure. They can just ask us to configure the benefits, and they launch it within a couple of days. So that's the power of digital wellness system. And for the employees also, they can pick and choose what they want. Uh, because wellness is actually personal, right? I mean, for me, the definition of wellness will be completely different to what Asmani would be, defining the wellness for herself. So I can pick and choose what I want, and it's easy for me to navigate through the whole wellness ecosystem. So that's from an integrated health ecosystem point of view. The other part is personalization. Now, we've used various apps on our daily basis. Now, if you go to any e-commerce platform, you see that, okay, now the platform itself is showing what you wanted based on your interaction with the platform earlier, be it Amazon or Flipkart or any such e-commerce websites, fairly decent e-commerce websites. There is a lot of personalization that has happened. It is called as hyper personalization. Like, it collects data from various activities which you do. Probably you would have Google search some item to buy, and the next time when you go to any of the platforms, you see those ads. So basically, these are personalized content or advertisements which you see. So same thing should happen in healthcare also. Now, around a decade back, when we have to drive utilization or drive health check utilization, we used to send basic messages. That was the easiest thing we could do. We were sending SMS or emails to employees to talk about importance of health checks. Today, we don't have to do a blanket email or SMS. Today, we can look at the way the employee has come to our platform and then interacted with the platform, and the kind of content they've read on the platform, or various data we already have. Maybe the same employee would have taken a health check last year in a different organization or as a retail customer. So we know what are the various health and wellness requirements for that particular employee or any consumer in that way. And we can actually send directed message triggers or notifications to the employees, and then give what they're actually looking for. So the personalization has gone to that level. So we know what exactly a customer is looking at, and then serve his need. It could be maybe somebody's having diabetes, or maybe somebody's having vitamin deficiency. We can actually trigger them. Okay, you've done health check 1 year back, and you had certain deviated health vitals. It's already been 1 year. Here is this is how I mean. Here is a time to get your health check done. It could be driving a diet consultation. Okay, maybe we have identified that somebody is having certain health issues. he or she is supposed to have a diet consultation, we can actually trigger those kind of messages. Now, what happens is end user gets a wow experience. Okay, now this is exactly what I was looking for, and here is a platform who's actually giving me on the plate. Now, with that kind of wow experience we are giving through the platform, and of course with the complete integrated health ecosystem available on the platform, it will be very very easy for us to drive adoption. And this has been the case with a lot of corporates who work with us. That is how the final end result they get. They do a lot of I mean, they need not spend a lot of time on curating emails and sending blanket emails to customers. We can actually do a hyper personalized way of communicating and delivering the services what a customer is looking for.
Definitely. I think like digital is the key to unlocking personalization in the well-being space. So, Ajay, I would like to come to you, and as we spoke about, digital adoption and personalization.
I have something to say about this
Yes.
this one also before you go to the next question. So I think, yeah, most of the things, I again, this is me talking personally. This is not the organization. So I believe in what was just said. So the thing that we launched, I mean, the aim with which we launched, the task that I'd given to my team was that there are, just think that you're throwing a party for some people. So whether it's 50 or whether it's 500 or 500, 1,500, whatever, the main thing is to make as many people happy, go back satisfied with the lunch that they got, than you know than otherwise. And the only way that you can do that is to serve them a bouquet of dishes. It's not just North Indian or just South Indian or just Chinese or whatever. So we divided our wellness into 8 pillars, which had all these, the physical and the emotional and the occupational and the intellectual, spiritual, financial, environmental. So 8 pillars we have. And the next task was to get everything together. So we did that on a digital platform with one click and you can reach access any of these. But I think another important thing to do is to figure out what are you serving to whom. So a demographic check of your locations, if you have many locations, or your building, if you have one building, is very necessary, because it's pointless serving a paratha to an Eskimo. Right? You need to know what that person requires and what he'll be happy with. So that demographic, whatever analytics was done, the point where I differ, or the points where I differ, is number one, we're still with an expert in one area. So if we go to physical, we go to the guy who is the best in physical. If we go to emotional, we go to the guy who's best in emotional. And we don't want consolidated reports, because that's something that my analytics team does. So they gather all the data and then they figure out how to put it together so that it makes sense to us. Personalization, I'm against. Again, this is me talking, because of the way that things are today. This internet 2.0, me having a discussion with my wife in the drawing room saying that we might go to Jaipur the next weekend, and I get a advertisement of a Jaipur hotel, scares me, right? Because Alexa is listening and I don't know what else she's listening to, and to what extent she's going to use my data, to what purpose. So if I go to the website or the whatever portal, wellness portal, and I read an article on divorce, and next time when I go there, there is a message or an SMS comes out only to me saying that we have another session on divorce, or we have a session on life after divorce, and so on and so forth. That will scare me, because I don't know who else knows. Because MediBuddy is pals with my employer also. And however much you may say that you will not share this data with him, I don't know, because I don't know you that well. So we'd like to give people the comfort of anonymity. We'd like to say that we've got these 12 offerings that happen, let's say, in a month, and everyone should know everything that is happening. Then you pick and choose. You want to have chola bhaturas, or you want to have parathas, or you want to have tandoori chicken. That is your choice. But I will serve it equally to everyone, because I don't want to have
I
to
think Ajay
everyone, so that
lost.
we'll make it safe. Yeah,
I think anonymity and personal choice
yeah,
also, right? And by personal choices, I think you also have to account for the family doctor, the family therapist, the person I have traditionally gone to for eons and eons that I trust with my life, right? So I think that is also a big component of how people look and view their healthcare. So there will always be a segment of people for certain things. I won't say for all things, but for certain things go to their tried and tested. I mean, I know all of us, in your communities, you have all of these groups, right? And the first thing that people ask is, do you have a doctor who's really good at this? And what's your experience like? So I think that it's not just about ease of usage, it's also a lot to do with trust. And as I say, this is an extremely personal space. So individuals do exercise that choice and should exercise that choice.
True.
Yes. Rohit, would you like to add something?
So personalization for us, personalization is mainly with respect to health and wellness. I mean, some of the sensitive topics we don't touch so much, but if somebody, especially on the physical health, I mean, that is what our dedicated focus is on through some of these personalization items. Because if somebody is having some chronic diseases, for example, we want to ensure that that customer takes active steps towards improving his health, rather than that's the kind of handholding we are doing through some of the personalization techniques. Now, our experience says that a lot of our customers are actually happy with this kind of a personalized services. And I mean, if all the interactions are through our app only, so there is nothing, none of this data is getting transferred to a Google Ads or any such platform. Everything is happening inside MediBuddy platform. It's a closed loop platform. So that's a personalization we are talking about. Yes, absolutely. Like Mr. Ajay said, uh, if somebody is listening, like an Alexa is listening to our conversation, that's not a great experience. And for that kind of personalization, we are also against. But this is purely from improving the health of the employee only. That's the closed loop platform we are talking about.
So Ajay, I just wanted to come circle back to you and understand what sort of wellness offerings are being done at SRF, and what are the choices that are being offered to the employees there to address their different needs.
So I think again, as I mentioned, we've got activities in each of these 8 pillars that we have. So we had a lot of different things, but it didn't have a structure. And as Rohit was mentioning, it wasn't sort of aggregated in one wellness offering, so to say, or a wellness umbrella. So we have starting from whatever the annual health checkups to the EAP to the doctor on call, the doctor on phone, the doctor on wherever. I mean, you can take appointments and go. And so simulating a lot of these standalone apps that are there in the market, not necessarily using those. And we've got obviously a lot of digital sessions, the attendance in which is going up day by day. And I think again, we want to make it available to everyone, because if I buy a blue car on that day when I'm driving out of the showroom, I notice a lot of blue cars, because that is what my brain sort of registers. So if I have diabetes, then any communication about diabetes is going to attract my attention, and I'm going to act on it, and that's my belief. So, and what Rohit said is absolutely okay, that if I get in isolation, in confidence, a message about diabetes, I'd welcome that too. But again, there would be some people who would wonder who all has access to that information. So we collect data on aggregates. We don't take names. We just say that, how many people attended a session on stress at the workplace, and we collect trends. So if we have more people at one location attending sessions or reading content about stress at the workplace, then we know that there is some action required there, right? But if it's evenly spread out, and if it's like 5%, 10% of people, and they could be having a bad day, we also track the number of hits. So we tell them that if there are 10 consecutive hits in 10 days on work life balance, for example, then we like to know which location is going to be affected more. they're coming from, and then obviously we that person take care of that problem or that group or those people. So I think today I would think that we have, I mean, it'll be, so let's say I have got a list of about 170 things that we do. So useless to name them here, but under these 8 pillars, and they're not spectacular things, they're not big ticket items, all of them. Obviously, you can't do 170 big ticket items. But even if it is like, so for example, something very small, we have workshops on how do you handle the first year after marriage, because it is life changing, whatever. So we call it Shriman Shrimati. It's available digitally, it's available on demand, it has sessions at various workshops. We've got family days, we've got employee connect, we've got games and sports, we've got financial planning. What is your relationship with money? What is your relationship with time? Is there anything that you want to do? What is your relationship with yourself, with your close circle, and so on? Occupational, we have people worry about their careers, and the structure that we have, it is a little difficult to chalk out career plans for people because we are highly dependent on vacancies and so on. Not a huge organization where we have opportunities sort of mushrooming all over the globe. So we have to be careful, but we know that these are the things, as Lavanya mentioned in the beginning, that we have to know that there are things that might matter to people, and we need to recognize them, and we need to act on them. We need to tell him or her that we are there, we are listening, and as the phrase that she used, that we care.
Thank you for sharing that, Ajay. Lavanya, since we've spoken about personalized, yes, since we've spoken about personalization and accessibility, I want to understand, since today employers are employing people through diverse contracts, like we have the gig workers, we have contract workers. So I just want to understand, how can well-being solutions be made more inclusive of a diversified workforce, and what is being done at Genpact?
Oh, thanks, Asmani. So I don't know whether Rohit knows or not, but we are very much partnered with MediBuddy.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
And and irrespective of whether our workforce is contractual or whether it is from the gig, etc., we treat employees as our own. And that is the philosophy and ethos of the organization. So you spread all your communication to all of the sort of the above heads. To Ajay's point, I think a lot of it is again about creating safe spaces to have those conversations. So we host several webinars on several themes and topics. I mean, I remember from whether we look at physical well-being in terms of the impact of certain diseases and so on, to make them more relatable, recognizable. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that you are not alone in it, right? That there are many others who've had similar experiences and sort of come through on the other side. Whether it's about emotional and mental well-being, you create those safe spaces where I don't have to necessarily post a question or say my name, but you are covering the topics that are important for me to sort of think about and understand. I think also from a well-being perspective, we have a chief medical officer for the organization, so there is always access to a doctor on site, to take advice from, and that is a facility that we've conscientiously chosen to keep accessible to all our employees. But I think it's not just about access so much anymore. It is also about creating that inclusive culture and opening up that conversation so that people realize that health and well-being is not something that's not to be spoken of. It's not something that's in the back burner, or a piece of paper that you need to put into a drawer and discuss with your family. Because as a result, if you have issues and challenges, your organization is also there to support you work through those issues and challenges, so that you can be successful as an individual. And that really, again, comes to the kind of culture you create. As a, and we're 115,000 people now globally. So when you try to think of creating that culture across 115,000 people, hand on my heart, are we successful 100% of the time? Definitely not. But I think if we're successful most of the time, that's something that would be of success for us. And you find that there are certain core things that people stay with organizations for today. Health and well-being is one, inclusion is another, diversity of workforce is a third one. People are not really connected with the brand as much as they are connected with the culture of the organization today, particularly the generations that are coming in now. And therefore, having the heart and soul of the organization apparent and accessible is really the new way of things.
Thank you for sharing that, Lavanya. Rohit, I would want to come back to you since you've spoken a lot about digital adoption. So, are there some challenges, that need to be addressed in accelerating digital adoption? And what is your advice, on tackling those challenges to achieve inclusivity and increase accessibility?
Yeah, so there are challenges at we understand there are challenges at HR and also, right? But what I mean, some of the challenges we should be able to solve it jointly working together. So right from even digital adoption is one thing. First, we have to actually give the kind of wellness program an employee is actually looking at. So nowadays we've seen a lot of corporates coming forward. They actually start involving us right from the beginning of designing the wellness program itself, because they want to start looking at, okay, what does my employees want. They start doing some health risk assessment and also do some surveys to understand what employees are looking for, and then understand some of their basic health and wellness requirements, and then they design the kind of wellness program. So because otherwise, like one such challenge I'll tell you, one corporate wherein their average age group was 28 years. The first wellness program they wanted to start was like a health check program. Now, after running for a year, they felt that, okay, the adoption is very very less. It was close to 20%. Then they actually did a survey to understand. It gave them a lot of insight that a lot of employees did not know the importance of health check itself, right? Then if that itself is not solved, like even in terms of the way you launch it, the way you communicate about the health benefits, if it is not solving the awareness about on the importance of health check, then it will definitely fall flat. So we should understand the challenge deep, and there are a lot of companies, not just MediBuddy, there are a lot of companies who are actually helping the HRs, corporate HRs, to understand these challenges better and then tackle it in the right manner. So now what happened is, then the client understood, okay, this is the biggest challenge we are actually addressing to a population with an average age group of 28 years. They're not really worried about health checks at the moment. But once you actually do a health check, you know that close to 30% of the employees are having deviated health vitals, right from your obesity, cardiovascular disease risk, pre-diabetic conditions. You may not see a lot of diabetes condition, but you see a lot of pre-diabetic conditions in any health check which we do. There are a lot of blood pressure issues. And when it comes to emotional well-being, whenever we do a emotional wellness survey or a health risk assessment around emotional health, we've seen a lot of issues faced by such age group also. It is just that we have to create those awareness through various touch points on the importance of these elements, and then we can actually jointly solve the accessibility and the adoption of the various wellness initiatives. And there is no uh, ready-made option for solving it. It is highly customized based on the challenges a corporate is facing.
Definitely agree with that. Thank you for sharing that, Rohit. Ajay, I'll also start throwing in some audience questions as we carry on the discussion. So, one of our audience has asked, could you share how team leaders can drive wellness initiatives at the team level? So, what would be your advice?
See, the way that we've tackled this, and again, all the problems associated with the digitization, uh, not digitization, but adoption of these measures, they're I'm sure common to kinds of industry. Lavanya would have a different set of problems, but they'll be the same across all offices that she has. I've got a different set of problems, same across all locations. So one is access to media, whatever, what do we call them, devices, or so you have to think of how, even if you've got content, how is it going to reach the last guy? I mean, you can't provide these devices to everyone for the sake of wellness. I think that will be an overkill, and half of them will not be used for this purpose anyway. So one is the accessibility. You make the team leaders aware that your team can reach content or access content at this place. So whether you have kiosks, whether you have live sessions, then you need to figure out that the team leader is not impacted because the team is going for, let's say, a session, to take a small example. So you need to work out the timings, make life as easy for him as you can. That is at one end. But I think more important, you have to get him on your side with that awareness or that conscious effort to make him aware as to how he is going to benefit if his team is, within quotes, happier and healthier. So, so that's what we've been doing with a lot of initiatives, whether it's training or whether it's wellness. Unless the manager appreciates the value of training and is drawn to it, highly unlikely that he's going to recommend any one of his team members to go for a training program. The same holds true for wellness. Unless I'm bought into the idea and I've actually experienced a benefit myself, till that time I'm not going to let my team members, or at least I'm not going to, go to them and say that, please, why don't you go and do this, because I don't see value in it. So that's what we did initially, that because we knew that carpet bombing may not be the right, approach here, we got what we call the influencers on our side. They could have been team leaders, they may not have been team leaders, but these were the people who would drive behavior to a certain extent at a location. So I think that's something that we did. I'm sure there are many other ways of doing it, but that's one way to do it. And we did see success. Pre and post adoption rates were much different.
I would like to add one point here, or as an example. So we have a client which is a pharmaceutical company with around 2,000 employees across the country, right from Kashmir to Kanyakumari. So when they launched a wellness initiative, I mean, they wanted to do a health screen. They had various bunch of activities or health benefits. So how they actually drove utilization, because it's been very difficult. We know driving utilization or adoption with a corporate with office locations itself is different. Now just imagine there are no office space itself. Typical pharma company, a lot of sales employees across the country. So how they wanted to drive utilization, and they had come up with a concrete plan. I mean, they didn't actually ask for any ideas from our side. They had a concrete plan in place. They said whatever ENPS score which they evaluate, employee net promoter score, uh, team well-being was one of the metric which they were tracking against the manager. So when you have a MNPS, team well-being is one of the score, and wellness adoption of the team is also part of the manager KRA. And they were very good in communicating this to the entire leaders. And then they launched the wellness program. We launched a wellness program. Within 3 months, we had a utilization of 80% of the employees, 2,000 employees, out of 80,000, close to 1,600 employees going and availing their health screening. And like Ajay mentioned, they also had a leave policy. If you're going to do a health check, there was a half day leave provided by the organization, like a paid leave. On top of it, the managers were also driving the wellness initiatives, because MNPS score, in MNPS, this was also one of the main metric. One is adoption into the wellness program, which is the first step was to actually get the health screening done, and the overall team well-being was also measured for each manager. So these are some of the ways corporates are actually driving wellness initiatives through the managers. Now, wellness is not just HR. HR policy anymore. It is like an organization policy, and right from CEO to we will have to start driving the wellness program.
I think I'll just throw in a word of caution there. We tried doing something similar, not in the wellness space, but things that we wanted to drive. And what one must also be careful about, since I know some HR folks would be watching, is to also know whether it was actually being consumed in the manner that it was intended. By which I mean is that digitally it is very easy to log in and switch off mentally. or log in and go and do stuff, talk to clients, go to the market, come back, and after 2 hours log out again, and so on. So this 80%, if it is actually, and I'm not saying no aspersions or no judgments on whether it was 80% or not. Very happy if it was, but there have to be means to measure whether the 80% was actually, as I said, being consumed in the manner in which it was intended. And that's the difficult part, because with a distributed workforce, it's very difficult to keep tabs. I know there are solutions, but they're very expensive and may not make sense for many people. So just wanted to put that on the table, that at times we get misled by the numbers because there are so many. At times we get misled by numbers the other way around, because we noticed that there was one guy who logged in and there were 20 people watching. So numbers can go either way. One must have actual measures on the ground to figure out whether it's really working or not.
I think it's effectiveness measures, right? I mean, at the end of the
Yeah,
day, I mean, across any of the programs that we may run as an organization, whether they're people related or so on, I mean, at the end of the day, capturing audience is one part of it. How many people have we managed to engage and so on. But the other part of it is the effectiveness of the program and thereafter the application of it, right? And these are phases. So I'll give you an example. Any workshop will simply give you the fact that a person attended, but you've got to figure out a way how to
exactly.
measure the fact whether he or she has been able to apply the learnings from that workshop. Similarly, I mean, for us, when you think of creating awareness for team leaders, recognize those signs, etc., you want to actually think about it from an effective perspective: is how many people saw it, how much was that action, and has that action translated into an environment of belonging for the employee, or in the workforce. And again, there are digital tools that you can leverage to do that. So for us, I think one that we use is Amber, which is really a chatbot that talks to employees regularly in terms of their experience, how they're
Hmm.
feeling. And one of the pieces that we baked in there is belongingness score. And under belonging, diversity, inclusion, etc., and then the ease of conversation with the manager is a significant part of it. What's interesting about the tool is that it's adaptive, right? So as you give feedback, it starts digging deeper and asking for and the result of it goes to not your manager, it actually goes to your manager's supervisor, because then I know that this person in my team, who may not be a direct report to me, is struggling with a certain set of things, and gives me the opportunity then to go and assess it. So anyway, I mean, long story short, I think the point that I'm trying to make is it's not just about enrollment, it is also about the effectiveness of the program, and therefore you've got to think of it end to end, in terms of when do I even think of measuring the effectiveness of that program.
Thank you for sharing that, Lavanya. So, Ajay, I would also like to get your input on, you spoke about, that there are certain limitations to measuring the ROI of wellness programs and the impact that it has on the community. So, could you share some measures or some insights that could, help leaders to get started on the journey, to measure the effectiveness of the wellness programs?
So you've got to do a lot of stuff at the same time. It's very difficult to have a one-on-one kind of a measure. So number one, you have to have a number of offerings that we've spoken about, because different people need different things. Not need, but different things are more useful for certain people, and there are life stations, and there are, whatever beliefs and so on and so forth. So what you have to do is to combine a lot of data that's flowing in the system, and that's why we set up this analytics wing about 6-7 years back, because we have a lot of data. So what do you want to achieve? Let's say if you have an EAP, what do you want to achieve through that? You want to reduce the stress levels or the anxiety levels in the system, right? Through whatever means. And obviously there are other things that contribute to that. Then you track, and ROI is always long term. It's never, it's not like you attend a session, you come back and you say, you buy a football, and then you're healthy the next morning. So you need to track the measures that will directly impact, or rather the other way around, that these activities will directly impact. So in your EES or ESS, whatever you call it, you would have a question or a set of questions on stress at the workplace. Now it could originate at the workplace, it could originate at home. Statistically, if you're talking about stress in the EES, it's typically originating at the workplace. So you know that that number is going down over 2 or 3 cycles of the whatever. No, so physical this thing, you can check through how many sick leaves were taken, uh, year on year. Are they reducing? Are they going up? Or through so whatever you're doing, you need to have a measure. And many times, a lot of things will contribute to one thing, and we often exaggerate on the importance of one element. You have the best wellness program in the world, but if you abuse your people day in and out, it doesn't matter. So that environment that you have, it's a package. A person wakes up to go to a package. He or she doesn't wake up and go to a online doctor. Right. So what matters is what you are as an organization above everything else. So you spend money on this. You do a lot of thinking. You do your PQM, project planning and rollout and this and that. Unless you have an environment that is conducive for the well-being of people, this is just a tick in the box. And I think that's what matters.
Completely aligned with you on that, Ajay. I think the environment in which you work, and I know I alluded to this earlier, the environment in which you work in is your immediate environment, right? And that has to be a positive environment that influences you. And as far as measurements go, I think there are several things that happen from a people perspective that contribute to, the retention and the sense of belonging of individuals within the organization, and therefore to recognize what are those hard metrics that you can check, you can evaluate ongoingly to see, what is the impact of your holistic programs, the suite of programs that you're providing, your employee base. I think some basic things in terms of how long do people stay with you? What is their attrition look like in terms of 0 to 12 months, 12 to 24 months, or 0 to 6 months, and so on? These are things that, they are hard facts that tell you a lot about the organization, because if in a year you have high attrition, then that is not an organization I'm feeling comfortable working in, and therefore I'm moving on. It's telling you something, and then there are a whole host of things you have to look at in order to build a much better and more inclusive work environment. I don't think there is a organization today worth its salt that doesn't have, talk about, employee culture and so on and so forth. I think it's the small steps you do to navigate development, growth, wellness, so on together, that makes someone feel that they are valued, as people and as well as contributors. And you have to fuse the two together to really look at the culture that you're creating.
Yeah. Just one last thing, if I can add, I have a hard stop at 4. Another measure that we're introducing from the 1st of August is reimbursements for anything that you do for your wellness. So we have a fixed limit depending on we call them bands, depending on the grades. Anything, no questions asked. You buy a set of tennis shoes, running shoes, you buy a Fitbit, you buy a t-shirt that you can run in, you buy a golf set, you gym membership, Zumba classes, anything related to, but this is more physical wellness. And that, I think, is, I mean, the money may not be huge, but it's symbolic. Again, taking from Lavanya, it tells people that we care. We obviously give you a salary, but on top of that, we are making sure that there is something that, it's a symbolic whatever to begin with, and hopefully we increase those amounts as we go along. I have to take leave, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much, Asmani, for having me here. Lavanya, Rohit, great talking to you, with you, and hopefully we'll catch up again soon.
Thank you for
Absolutely
joining the
wonderful
session.
connecting with you as well, Ajay.
Thanks.
It's our
Thanks.
pleasure
Bye
to.
bye.
Thank
Bye.
We're almost to the end of the session. So, any last words from you, Rohit, on measuring the effectiveness of wellness solutions?
So I think a lot of top of the mind points are already discussed. I think one point which was missed. I think that's a long term synergy. Like we should start measuring the wellness quotient of the employees also. Like pre-program and then post-program. It's a definitely a long-term metric which we should be tracking. So with that, it becomes a holistic solution, and then the way we measure is also very holistic, right? It can't be. I mean, one is we should start measuring the adoption. We should look at each employees are in the various wellness programs, and the third one could be the final health outcomes we should be looking at. And with all these metrics in place, HRs won't face any challenge in getting the right budgets from the CFO also. I think because most of the time ROI discussions are with CFOs. They will always ask, okay, why do we have to spend so much money? So that's the thing. So if health things improve, then obviously your claims will come down, and these are some of the long-term metrics we can actually measure.
Thank you for sharing that, Rohit. So, with this, we're going to wrap up today's discussion. Once again, we would like to thank our partner MediBuddy and our panelists Lavanya and Rohit for sharing their insights with us. And for more details on the Wellness First with MediBuddy campaign, you can visit our website. Thank you once again for joining us. Thank you for sharing your insights. And that concludes today's session. Thank you once
Thanks.
again and have a great day.
Thank you very
Thank
much,
you.
Asmani, Lavanya. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Rohit. Thanks, Asmani. Bye.